Seanie.T, welcome back to the channel, and on this episode we're restoring an old frame. Now this has been done almost to death here on YouTube, with people taking an old frame, they strip the paint off, they strip the old decals off and paint it either by hand or with a gun, and then they put all the new decals on, and to be fair they do a decent job. I've done it myself, but what I also want to show you is an alternative to doing that. Now I haven't seen this yet on YouTube, I might be wrong, it probably is out there. But this is, like I say, an alternative to this frame. Is a 1995 Trek frame, once had by my friend. He lost his, it was stolen, and everyone who knew him at the time was in awe of the frame. I particularly was jealous of it, and I always wanted one, so eventually I found one. It's in really poor condition, but I don't want to lose any of these original decals or the original paint, because it's a lovely two-tone paint. So I'm going to restore it to its former glory. There is some damage on here that can't be repaired, it's not magic. I'll give you a quick show over the bike. There is some damage where its paint's bubbled away, where the joins between the main tubes and like the head tube are. That I can't do anything about, but what we can do is make the rest of it look so pretty when we do this, is that it'll draw your eye away from the rest of it, and it'll give it a more fresher kind of new look bike feel. So then hopefully we'll feel a lot better about it. This bike, because of the damage there, I probably wouldn't put it through a winter's worth of riding into it. It'll be a summer riding job only. Try and keep a lot of the moisture out of the tubing, so I won't have to wash it as much. So hopefully this shouldn't get any worse than what it already is. So we'll flip over to the camera. Unfortunately my camera quality is quite crap, so there'll be some points where I'll flip over to a little camera that I've got that is in 4K. We might be able to pick up some of this lovely paint, and then we'll go through the lacquer process as well, so you'll see it all transform into its new soon-to-be glory. Right, let's get on with it. So as we have a quick walk around the frame, you can see there's a lot of damage here from where we've had cable rub, and where the bare inner cables rub here, I've already started rubbing it down here to get rid of some of it, so it looks a bit frosty at the moment. And see all this white here, all this, that'll all come off. If it doesn't come off as we first clean it, when we rub it down with the wet and dry, it'll then come off. Now this is the damage, we can't get around that. This isn't going to be magic, but we can make the rest of it look so pretty you won't even notice. Now decals wise, these are all in really good condition. I don't really want to lose any of these, even down the side there, with the exception of this. So we're going to rectify this. We're not going to strip all this off, we're going to mask this off here and carefully airbrush it back in. So for those of you who are familiar with airbrushing, it's a tiny little procedure with a very tiny air paint gun. Mine's actually for nail art that I found. It's about cost me about 15 quid off internet, and then just compressor. So this, it's not going to get rid of this, but we can rub it down a little bit and smooth it over a tiny bit, and then give it another coat of lacquer in, and then hopefully it'll all look so clean and tidy you won't even notice. Again, it's the same on that side. See, all this damage here will all disappear. It'll all be buried. Now this sticker is just about intact. There are a few marks here, we'll get rid of them. I think we're about there with that. So hopefully with my crap camera and that close-up footage and my heavy breathing, you'll be able to see that this is in quite poor condition. It is a 1995, so it's got a fair few years under its belt, and I bought this from a doctor over in Retford. He'd owned it from brand new, and it was still all 100% original. Unfortunately, some of the black chrome on the black chroming on the crank arms and the cantilevers is coming off, so I've got a couple of ideas how to restore them, but that'll be another video. So we're just going to concentrate on this for now, so we're going to try and get rid of all this cable rub and get this all freshened up. So we'll get to it now, and we'll get some wet and dry. So for this next bit, all we need is some wet and dry. We need to really specify that this is 1500 grit. Sorry, I'm showing you there, I'm looking into the wrong bit. So 1500 grit wet and dry. Try to use that. If not, maybe go up to maybe 2000, but for God's sakes don't hit your frame with 200 grit, 300 grit, 400 grit, because it isn't going to cover back up again, and it's going to look hideous, and you'll say, well, why did you do that? Because he told me to. And the other bit is your dog bowl. Oh, I don't have a dog, but a bowl with water in, that's all. And if you notice, we're in the kitchen here, we're not going to make that much mess. So because we're only touching on this a little bit, it's not going to be all over the floor and all that, so you can probably get away with doing this early on in the morning before the missus gets up and make a mess in the kitchen and stuff where it's nice and warm, because even through lockdown this time, with it being winter, who wants to be out in the shed? Not really me. I'll have to go out later to spray it, but that's about as much as I'm going to do. So you can get away with this in the kitchen. So we're going to get to it now. We'll start rubbing this down, and then we won't bore you with the process of that. I'll just show you the end result. So, right, I'll get on with it. So we're just starting to we're just going over the full frame to start with. I've already degreased this frame and cleaned it all off. I've seen other people do stuff when they clean it off. First thing they do is douse it in water or submerge it in a bowl and clean it up. This has had a lot of history with water damage and things like that that has been left in there in the tubing for long periods of time. So if it's a bike like this, I wouldn't suggest filling it full of water and having a go. Try and be careful when you clean it. Minimum of water, and not only that, you don't want it left in the tubing when you're going to come up to spraying it. So if we can, just clean it off using plenty of rags, a bit of water localised on a rag, and then after that make sure white spirit's a good one to clean down with. I use a lot of white spirit on them. It gets rid of the grease, but the white spirit won't damage the original paintwork. When I say white spirit, I don't mean cellulose thinners, acetone, or your missus's nail varnish remover. Don't use any of them. I say white spirit. So unless your frame has been painted with either Umbral paint or Amorite, then in which case it needs stripping off regardless. Other than them two things, white spirit won't react with the paint, or it won't recatalyst the paint into going soft again. So we're going to continue with this, clean it all off, just lightly rubbing it down with this 1500 grit all over like that. You can see it's coming up dusty, but like with this bit even here, I'll just give it a quick touch of water. So this bit even here, we will go over it, but we won't dwell on it. There's not much we can do, but if we give it a little bit of a rub down, so it helps the new lacquer key to it, we can kind of bury this. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you another little bit I did last night. A little sneaky preview of the forks. I've already done them. Back in a sec. Right, so in typical Blue Peter style, here's a bit earlier. I mean, I don't think it said that, but you can see here, these are my crappy camera. Look at the quality. I'm sorry, I'm looking into the wrong bit, but I need to make sure you see this bit. Look at that. There is a bit of mist in there because I went a bit over the top with the lacquering. I gave it an extra coat when I shouldn't have done. I was just a bit impatient, but that's not a big deal. Down T-cut, not a problem at all. But you can see there's a damage there still. Look, you can see where the let me show you. See where the paint's lifted off underneath all them years ago. Now all I did was just carefully rub it down. Now you can still see that, but touch to the feel like that, you can't really notice it. But they're so shiny and clean now and upcycled that you don't even notice that little bit on the back, which is hopefully what is going to happen with this bit here. So the rest of it will be so gleaming and shiny that your eye will be distracted by the shiny bits and look away from them bits, but your frame will keep that original factory look, and hopefully it'll be the best one on eBay when you go to flog it. But not for me, this one's keeping. Unless I give this one to my friend, because since his was stolen, he keeps pestering me to sell it and I don't think I can do it, but I might leave it in my will to him, you never know. So because this white spirit, it evaporates at room temperature, so for a very, very short period of time, as we wipe it on, it'll give you a little insight into what it'll look like when it's lacquered. So you can see it's all mucky there. We'll zoom in a little bit. You want to see this. You need to see this, look. Right, here we go. We're closer. We're closer. Right, if you can see that well, as we go over this with the white spirit, that's what it'll look like when it's finished. It'll have that deep shine to it, that deep glossy look, but obviously when it's lacquered it'll stay like that. This at room temperature will disappear and it'll go back hazy again. We're just using this as a cleaning exercise, which needs to be repeated a couple of times, but like I say, it just gives you an insight into what it'll look like. Now that comes up lovely. So all them scratches that were on here from the cable that runs from here to here, over the years has been caught by the legs and it's chafed holes in. What it's done is literally just smoothing the top off with a 1500 grit, and at the moment the dampness of this is filling the gap in, so it looks like that clean shiny finish. I don't know if you see it any cleaner. Can you see it? With that paint job and that kind of glossy effect, that will look gorgeous when it's done. Right, so you see, that's been like a couple of seconds to me, that's been a full morning. So welcome back. The frame's dried out from when we cleaned it off earlier with the white spirit after rubbing it all down, and we're just going to address this little damaged bit on the sticker here because we don't really want to lose these stickers. So for this, we're going to need some white paint to replace the stickers. We've got some silver paint in the background. We've got one of these little things called an airbrush. This is actually like a nail art one. They're about 15 quid if you buy a nail art one off eBay. Or if you buy like a proper one, like a Badger or Aztec, you could be looking at hundreds. But basically the same. This one's brilliant. It's got couple of little O-rings in it. The rest of it is stainless steel. It's almost indestructible, and they come in a couple of different sizes. They spray like in points of a millimetre. And the other bit is this sellotape. Now bear with me on this one. I think, why has that knobhead got sellotape instead of using masking tape? But it's because when you're doing fine line bits like this, it has a nice sharp edge on. You already put a small amount of paint on, so it doesn't really get a chance to bleed underneath. And as you lay the tape on to pick out the fine parts, you can see underneath where you're masking off and where you're not masking off to see whether you've got the right area or not. So this is better. And when you're done, it sometimes does leave a bit of a residue on there as you peel it off, but not a problem. You just go back over your cloth with your white spirit on. It'll pull the residue off, but it won't touch your paint as long as you're using like an acrylic that's gone off or a cellulose paint on top for these little touch-up bits. Right, so we're going to start masking off, and we're going to try and recreate the white part first. So we're going to fill in all of this section with white before we go on with the silver and recreate the edge of the decal. So if we line it up along the bottom of the other decal parts, drop that tape on, press the air out, it's on. Right, so we've just got everything set up in the shed. We'll just give it a quick go. Hopefully we'll get this touched in now. I'll just get you zoomed in. Right, I know the darkness is a bit of a pain in the arse in here, but just a little test. Ever so slightly. So nice steady hand. Just test it, get it going. Building up the intensity on it. So you know, it's a starting here on the just a brown tape, just to get my finger feel for the regulation of the air. As we push down and pull back, we get the air on, and then we just chase that line at the bottom there. I mean, I've got a bit of contamination from another colour, but it's not a big deal. We can still go over that. So there you go, even just that first stage of it makes it look a lot more presentable than having a big chip in the K. Just that white just takes your eye away from the dark colour of the sticker that was actually missing. So all this lot, don't stress about this, this all comes off with a bit of white spirit. As soon as that's dried, we'll get the rest off. All this will be back clean again, and then we'll just mask off for the silver bit of the K, and we'll blend the silver that I've got, which is actually now our wheel paint. We'll same, decant a bit into the airbrush, and then we'll just dust it on and blend it into the K, but we'll make that sharp line again as well. Stay with the same process, a bit of tape, and that's all we need. And that's one letter done. You can do multiple letters at a time if you need it, but to be honest, this is about the only decal really that really needs the attention. The other ones aren't too bad, so it'll look pretty sweet when it's done. So as you can see, you've got to get pretty close to be able to spot that that's a bit of a sticker missing. It's been touched up with an airbrush, but it's a very, very good match. The alloy wheel paint, I could tell from years of doing this that was going to be a quite good match anyway, and I could blend it into the rest of the sticker. The borderline around the outside, the white, that's pretty dialed really. It's about the right thickness all the way around. So all in all, that's a decent job. So if we just give it a last rub down, last clean off, and start to lacquer the rest of it, it'll bury some of these other imperfections from like the cable rub and stuff, and then it should start looking like it's pretty much straight out of the factory. Well, obviously there will still be these bits, we aren't going to get rid of them, but it's a lot better than it was. Not bad for a 1995 frame that's been put through the wars and back, I think. So again on this side, look how thick that is. It's literally back to its candy colour from factory. Now if you remember back, we had a big chunk missing out the K here. We airbrushed that in. You still see how it's sort of missing a little chunk, but where we faded it in, we have gone a little bit there where the E doesn't look quite right, but we can touch that up again after. But when you back away, looks almost completely original. The only downside is that where I've blended it, the silver is slightly lighter than the silver there. But again, I can mask that off separately and just dust that over very, very carefully with the airbrush when I find a more suitable silver. But it was not bad for a first go. Pretty close. Just show a shame about this, but we're never going to do anything about this. So there you have it. That's another method of reviving an old bike. While this has been going through its certain stages, I've been busy cleaning up all the other parts ready to go back on it. So I'm going to get on with the rebuild. So I'm going to put that into a separate video if anybody is interested in watching it. I'll probably do it anyway regardless. But it's been nice to see such an old frame in such a battered condition come back to life. Now I've got a couple more of these to do, so that'll be interesting. See if we can get the next ones done a little bit to a higher standard. But just first off, not a bad go. Right, thank you very much for watching. Right, see you all soon.
I am on a whole nother level. Girl, he only fucked you over cause you let him. Girl, I guess he didn't know any better. Girl, that man didn't show me ever. Do all I can just to show you you're special. Certain it's your love that holds me together. You say he been